everyone, my name is Vanshikha and I'm a third year med student going to Wits University. I was asked to share my experience of how I got into med school straight out of high school. So let's get started. I attended Rampart High School, which is a public school situated in Johannesburg, Gauteng, between 2013 and 2017. But way before then, I had always wanted to be a doctor. I saw my grandpa doing the same thing where he would help people, give back to the community, and I realized that I wanted to do the exact same thing. But I also knew that this path that I was looking at would require so much hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, and days where I'd have to choose studying over hanging out with friends, because I knew that if I put in the effort, I would get that reward. So, in grade 10, grade 11, I was getting really good marks, like around 88, 89%. And around that time, Wits sent a recruitment official to advertise them as a prospective university. The recruitment official was saying her speech of what the requirements were to get into medicine. And I asked her if the marks that I was getting at the time would get me into medicine. Unfortunately, she said that due to demographics, I would have to work even harder to get where I wanted to be. That just fueled my fire, and I realized that even though I was working that hard, it wouldn't cut it. So I made sure that I put in every second of my time into doing something constructive that would get me into medicine. So that involved community service to make my application look better. I also attended an NBT workshop called 7-Star Workshop, because my application, 50% of that was the NBT. So if I didn't do well in the NBT, it wouldn't matter how much I put in effort, or at least that's what I thought. So I did the NBT workshop, which familiarized me with NBT's formats, and it covered all the essential math skills and English skills. So I already knew that I was sorted once I did that workshop. Simultaneously, in case I decided to move out of the country because I'm a US citizen, I also was preparing for the SATs, which is what I would have to do if I wanted to look at USA's universities. So the SAT covers almost the exact same stuff as NBT, so I knew that way I had additional preparation. So I finished my NBT, I got 91% for math, and I got 70% for English. English has never been a strong point for me, so I was a bit thrown off by that, but I realized that in the end I'd done as good as I could, or as well as I could, sorry. So I did the NBT in the beginning of the year as well, just so that if there was any issues and I completely missed it, I could redo it, because in 2017 you could do the NBT 3 times before you had to give in your highest mark. Luckily, I realized that I did really well, so I didn't bother doing it a second time. Instead, I focused then on killing it with my matric marks. And I did, because in the end I matriculated with 91%. So with that, Wits gives scholarships based on the percentage you get. So they gave a 4,000 Rand deduction from your tuition per distinction you had. So I got 8 distinctions and managed to get a 32,000 Rand scholarship for the first year of medicine. So that way I self-fund myself, and yeah, so that's basically that. Sorry, I'm also looking here because I just want to see what I need to answer. So in terms of first year, so I worked hard, I got in, I managed to make my application look so impressive that Wits was like, yeah, we'll take you. So first year medicine came, and it was a big difference from matric. I thought that matric's workload was not too bad, but it wasn't easy to deal with at the time. And then first year happened, and I realized that even though I was trying to stay on top of things, I was somehow falling behind. First year was also difficult because it was a brand new start, so it was there weren't that many people that went into health sciences from my high school. There was like 4 people along with me, and because health sciences has different degrees in them, only one person was with me in medicine, so it was a bit lonely. But eventually I made friends, and I realized that with friends came connections, so it got easier to deal with first year, the workload and the content that was covered. The other issue, or not issue, but challenge that I saw when I was in first year was that the workload, even though the workload was a lot, the content wasn't stimulating for me. I didn't find it interesting because I didn't see the relevance that it had to where I want to be in 6 years' time, right now, 3 years' time. But now when I look back, I realized that that was just laying the foundation for me and that I really needed that content in order to build up. So first year, in my opinion, or in my experience, wasn't the greatest for me. I did find it very challenging just because it was so new to me. There were so many differences, and all my friends were in a different degree, and I felt like maybe because this degree was so challenging, it wasn't the right one for me. But I realized that there was always something in each subject that I found interesting, and that got me interested, and I would then put in that effort to do well in that subject. So with first year, I think the tips that I would give though, because I didn't follow them and I kind of regret some of the things that I did. So I would say that with first year, you'll think you don't have enough time, but there's always time. Don't procrastinate. I made the mistake of going a bit easy in first semester, and because of that, I ended up having to rewrite some of my notes during my exams in preparation for them, and I had like a sore arm half the time because I wrote so much. So I would say stay on top of your work. Make sure that you are understanding what you're going through so that when it's time to write the exam, you're not relearning things that you should have kind of had a basic idea of what's going on with. I would say that have a balanced lifestyle, have a social life, because there's time to actually do that in first year. In second year, and with every year that comes with it, it gets less and less, and you don't have that much time to focus on hanging out with friends. You rather spend that time focusing on yourself when you're not studying. So I would recommend that in first year, keep a healthy balance. Don't go overboard with partying or hanging out with friends, but don't live under a rock, because you'll look back and think first year wasn't too bad, but I don't have much to remember first year by, because we don't remember the studying in first year, we remember the good times, and I don't think studying was such a good time for me. I would say another tip is that when you're doing your work, stay on top of everything. When you know that you need to study, put in that effort. And one tip that I would definitely give with physics is that with physics, it's really challenging for a lot of people. I think majority of my degree struggled with it just because the content didn't seem very relevant to what we're going to be in the future. I would say though that if you know your variables and you know your equations, that's 90% of the work done. Sociology, on the other hand, is one subject I never got into, so I think that was what made the first semester for me in first year quite horrific, if I have to say that. It wasn't anything to do with the lecture, it was just the content just did not interest me at all, even though that's probably one of the most important things you should focus on, because sociology is so relevant in terms of developing your skills to interact with patients. And another thing I would say is that don't underestimate these subjects. They might seem irrelevant at the time and they might not be interesting or fun, but you're studying to get into a career that you will eventually find interesting and fun. So it won't always be like that, but if you put in the effort, you will get there. Don't worry. And please don't get scared that your marks went from 90% in matric to 60% in first year. It happens. And even if you put in a lot of effort, sometimes it might not get you won't get the reward that you wanted. But you just need to remember that if you know how much effort gets you where, you'll be fine. Don't get overwhelmed. Well, I won't say don't get overwhelmed because it's a normal thing to get overwhelmed. I think every year I get a bit scared of what the whole year has. But then I realize that if I just take it day by day or even week by week, I'll be fine. So don't get too overwhelmed if the workload is too much. Take breaks for yourself. Focus on yourself. Mental health, I think, is such an important thing, because part of why first year was I wouldn't say a nightmare for me, but it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, was because I wasn't happy. My mental health wasn't the greatest at that time because of the change. And I felt that I got overwhelmed so easily. I got scared that if I didn't get an 80% for a test, I basically failed. But I realized towards the end of the year that it doesn't matter. Your attitude matters towards your work. Even if it's difficult, you just carry on. You find it in you to remember what you're doing, why you're doing all this. And that brings me to my next point. There are going to be a lot of times along the way where you're going to feel so low and think, maybe this isn't the degree for me. Please don't forget what got you into it, because if you want to help people, there are so many ways to do it. But I feel like becoming a doctor gives you that extra step because you have more facilities that you are in contact with, that you can go even further in trying to help people because now you have more resources. Even though like it's not that easy, but I do think that in the end the reward is way bigger than the struggles along the way. I would also say what kept me going and what does keep me going is that I remember that I had a dream, and it was back then it was like be an astronaut and stuff like that, but then I realized that with reality you have to think about where you want to be, what impact you want to leave behind. And I want to leave an impact where I can say, well, people can say that I helped them, that I made a difference in their life, and that I'm someone to be trusted. And I think the best way to do that is to be a doctor, but that's just my opinion. But I realize that I always remind myself that that's the goal, that's the end goal, is to be someone that people respect because they are like, they help everyone without even asking to. And I realize that that is what I want. So that's part of my driving force. And yeah, so that's what keeps me going. Although sometimes I do hit so many lows, well, not so many, but I do hit lows because in the beginning of the year I would get overwhelmed and think, geez, people are saying that this is such a difficult year and I might not be able to cope. But I just remind myself that every year I found something difficult that year. But when I look back, I think, it was a piece of cake. Because that was matric for me. I thought matric was quite easy, but other people didn't. But then I found 11th grade quite difficult. So when I look back at it, I'm like, those weren't so difficult. And they got me to where I am now. So I just think, don't forget the end goal. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. So apart from the serious stuff, what my most difficult module was, I wish I could say that the whole of first year was like a module because that was all difficult. But if I had to be honest, HSD and sociology were the most difficult modules in my opinion. Not just in first year. If I had to look at first, second and third year, HSD and sociology, for some reason I just could not click with them. HSD is that one subject that if you ask any med student, they will be like they don't know what's going on, even to this day. I don't understand what I did in HSD. I just know that I somehow passed and I'm very grateful for that. And with sociology, I think it was just the essay writing and how tedious some of the assignments were. It just got me, like, it didn't rub me the right way. But if I have to say overall, I think third year right now is quite challenging, but there isn't a module that I dislike. It's just COVID is happening and online learning is a thing, so it's quite difficult. But I don't think in terms of content it's boring, whereas first year was boring in my opinion, so it was a bit difficult that way to get into it. My most favorite module, or like easiest one, contrary to everyone's belief, was anatomy. Anatomy was my favorite subject. I don't know why. I think maybe because everyone hyped it up more than it needed to be. They kept saying that it's the most difficult thing in the world. So I went into second year making sure that I got my exemptions so that I didn't have to write the exams because I was petrified. I did not want to write any of these exams because of the workload. And I learned from first year that the workload wasn't going to get any better. It was just going to get worse. So with anatomy, I made sure that I was always on top of my work. I would make the most colorful summaries, and I'm not that colorful in my summaries, but with anatomy, I made an exception. I made sure that my notes were easy, but that they still had all the information I needed, and I always revised, especially with anatomy, just because I was so scared that if I failed or if I got not the greatest marks, I would have to write the exam, and that scared me. And in part, anatomy was fun because physiology, which is another subject in second year, kind of complemented anatomy. So I found things that I liked in both subjects that complemented one another, so it made it easy to study. And once you find something that's easy to study, you just carry on, frankly. Like, it doesn't bother you to put in that effort. And that's what I enjoyed a lot about second year in general, was that I didn't seem to be phased about putting in that effort, the extra effort. The last thing I would say is advice to you guys, is that with matric, don't take it too lightly, but it's not the end of the world if you don't do well in a test, as long as you know that in the end, you meet the requirements that you need for getting into medicine. Right now, I'm not sure what the requirements are, if they're different from 2017, but in 2017, I told you I needed a minimum of 45 APS points for my demographics, plus I need to do really well in NBTs and have a very outstanding application. So just know that there's so many ways to make your application outstanding. Part of it is community service. I would say stack up those hours, they really help. They make your application look very, very impressive. And if there's a role in leadership that you can apply for in high school, go for it, because they look at things like this. They don't want followers in the future. They want doctors that can lead, that can take initiative, that can do things that other people can't. So find ways to make yourself stand out on your application and make yourself look unique. Another thing I would say is take it easy, but also know when you need to crunch it, when you need to do well and study. And it's okay to sometimes give up, not give up, but give up on time with friends. That's what I was trying to say. It's okay sometimes. I know it's the year of the 18th and you guys want to go and celebrate people and all that, but you do also need to know when to put in the time to focus on what will be your future. Don't lose sight of the big picture. You will be fine. You just need to remember what got you into medicine. And it's okay if medicine along the way isn't what you want, but just remember that it's okay. You will be fine, because I'm learning with each day. I'm learning that it's okay to sometimes freak out and get overwhelmed, because it's not the end. It always gets better. So my last words for you guys is, I know this was a long video, I'm really sorry about that, but I just realized that if someone was in my position, I would have really liked if I had that advice back then, because I didn't get as much advice as I thought that I needed. So some of the times I was hit by curveballs, but as long as you get up from when you've fallen, you're sorted. Find something that interests you in each subject, and I guarantee you will find that willpower to carry on. So that's just the last thing that I want to say. Thank you for sticking out till the end of this video, and I hope that whatever I say helps you. And yeah, good luck with the future. You guys will do great, and medicine is really rewarding, so just stick it out. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Cheers.
Our greatest glory is never in falling, but in rising every time we fall. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel to get more videos like these. Thank you to the new subscribers, very much appreciated.